You're not going to give evidence, Mr. Seward, are you?
Unfortunately not.
So, with your permission, may I call Mr. Herrera?
Thank you very much.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but
the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herrera. Do sit down and make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kinnear.
Good afternoon. Would you please confirm your name for the record?
Peter Herrera.
In front of you, you will have a blue folder, and hopefully behind the first tab, you will have your police statement, which is dated the 30th of January this year. And behind that, hopefully you'll find your contemporaneous note.
Yes.
Have you read both those documents recently?
This morning, yes.
And do you confirm their contents are true?
On the police statement, there's a couple of things that are they don't fit in exactly, but it's more or less there. Yes.
Well, if you can highlight those when we come to the parts.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Then we can deal with it then. But are you content for both those documents to stand as your evidence of the inquiry?
Yes.
Could we first deal with some basics? If any time you fancy a break, or need a break rather, please say so. And if any time my questions are unclear, say so and I'll rephrase them. Now, as I understand, at the time of the fire, you were a firefighter based at Lambeth, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you have 12 years or so experience as a firefighter?
At that time, yes.
And the appliance you were assigned to on that night, the call sign was Hotel 222.
Yeah, Hotel 222, yes, yeah. Correct.
You were linked with firefighter Orchard, who was your BA partner during the course of the evening, is that right?
She was not riding the fire engine with me. She was a firefighter from Soho Fire Station who became detached from her crews as she was driving their appliance.
Yes.
And obviously she became my BA partner for that night, yes.
Yes. And you were mobilised at 0137, does that sound right?
I can't tell you exactly, but I think so, yes.
Yeah. Now, there's no precise time for your arrival at the tower, but we do have the LFB's records of your BA wear. And your SDB was disconnected from the appliance at 0148. Does that sound about right?
That well could be, and that would be the time we arrived because we just took them there and then, yes.
Yeah, okay. And so there's next to no time difference between arrival and disconnection.
2 minutes.
And then you tallied out at the bridgehead at 0226. Does that sound about right?
It could be, well, it could be, yes.
And in the intervening half hour or so, what were you doing? Between disconnection of the SDBA at 148 and tallying out at 0226?
So tallying out from actually the job itself, from where I was committed to the fire?
Yeah, you were at the bridgehead, yes.
Oh, at the bridgehead. Could you please repeat?
Yes.
Sorry.
The SDBA was disconnected at 148.
Yes.
You tallied out at the bridgehead at 0226.
So there was no tally in?
I think you may... Let's take... When you left the entry control point
yes.
to go up the tower, that was about 0226. Does that sound about right?
It does, actually, yes.
Yeah. And what were you doing in the intervening half hour?
Well, we went to the 14th floor, where we were asked to rescue a family from the flat number 113.
I think what Mr. Kinnear is asking is what did you do between leaving your appliance
Oh, sorry.
and being committed by the bridgehead?
Yes, basically we left the appliance, walked to the tower, and basically we were told by a watch manager who was there by the entrance to either one side or the other, and then we were asked to go to the bridgehead to wait further.
Okay, thank you. Now, the first topic I'd like to discuss with you is your trip from the lobby to the bridgehead.
Yes.
Okay. Now, whilst you were at the lobby or around the bridgehead, did you see any assisted evacuations?
Yes, we did, yes.
Yeah. And they included unconscious-looking bodies, is that right?
That's true, yes.
And did you see a Paddington crew assisting evacuees out of the tower?
I did, yes.
And did you see this before you were at the bridgehead or whilst you were already at the bridgehead?
No, this was whilst we were in the lobby area before we made it to the bridgehead.
Before you went to the bridgehead, do you recall being briefed in the lobby by watch manager Glyn Williams?
No.
Was your first briefing therefore at the bridgehead?
It was, yes.
Yes. Could I ask Paul to turn up Met document quadruple 05774? Now, if you see that on the screen, Mr. Herrera, do you remember seeing this wall chart at the lobby entrance?
I remember seeing that wall chart at the lobby entrance when I actually left the incident. Didn't take any real notice of it as I was exiting, but that was on the wall, yes.
Yeah. And if you can see, middle column at the bottom, 113 14th.
Yes.
For want of a better phrase, did you clock that entry whilst you were at the lobby?
No, I didn't know. Sorry, I did.
You did?
I told Watch Manager Glyn Williams whilst I was in the lobby when I was exiting that flat had been searched and it was empty.
But before you went up?
No, I didn't. No, not before, no.
Right, before your deployment to floor
Yes.
14?
Before I deployed, I did not see that at all, no.
Okay. Right, the next question is, before you deployed to floor 14, did you see any other firefighters coming down from floor 14?
No.
No, okay. Were you aware, before you were deployed, had you seen any residents trying to lower themselves down out of windows?
No.
Had you heard accounts of them before you were deployed?
No.
No. Okay. Now, the next bit I'd like to talk to you about is the bridgehead. And if I could ask you to turn to page 3 of your witness statement. Now, Mr. Herrera, very helpfully, these come up on the screen, and it might be easier to look at the screen. And if I could ask Paul to put up the final paragraph on page 3. I'll just ask you, you say, we left the bridgehead area entry, sorry. Yes, we left the bridgehead area entry control point through a door and the conditions changed straight away. Now, first of all, can you remember on what floor the bridgehead was at that stage?
Yes, this is the part of my notes that's actually wrong. It says on my notes the bridgehead is on the 4th floor and it was on the 2nd floor.
Thank you. And who briefed you regarding your task?
Watch Manager De Silva.
And doing the best you can, what precisely did she say to you in explaining the task you were to fulfill?
She told me that we had to go to the 14th floor. There was a family in flat 113 that needed rescuing. And I actually wrote on the cuff of my reflective strip on my tunic 113 with a Chinograph pencil. Just peace of mind, 113, it's there, I know where I'm going.
And just for the avoidance of doubt, are you sure she used the word rescuing?
Maybe it's something I've added, but yeah, they needed, well, yes, rescuing, yes. They needed...
You understood the point of the exercise was to bring down the occupants?
Of 113, yes, of course.
Now, do you remember seeing a forward information board whilst you were at the bridgehead?
There was one, I didn't look at it.
Okay. If I could ask Paul to draw up Met document 000-18749, which is there on the screen, is that the FIB you remember seeing but not reading?
Possibly, but if I was told there's a family of 3 people in 113, and going by what I see there isn't a family of 3 people on. Now,
you say that Watch Manager De Silva told you to go to the 14th floor. In your statement, and you don't need to go to this, I'll put it to you, you say that you were to look for a family, an adult male, female, and a child.
That's correct,
now,
yes.
Just to be clear, do you mean a family which consisted of a man, woman, and a child?
Well, that is what I thought. That was the family. The family was that. 3 people, and when we got there, it became apparent that it was a family of 3, yes.
Yeah, and you say that's what I thought. You suggest that there was an element of hesitancy in your answer.
Well,
have you changed your mind subsequently?
No, subsequently when we got there, and I actually got to the door. Before getting there, we left the bridgehead, and the bridgehead was completely from the bridgehead onwards, black, thick smoke you could not see.
If I can just stop you there, just to clarify how many occupants there were, could I ask you to turn to your contemporaneous note, and roughly halfway down that note, you'll see I and firefighter Orchard from Alpha 24 Soho
Rigged in BA.
went to the 14th floor and rescued 3 persons.
Yes.
So that was your understanding when you were writing the contemporaneous notes of how many people you were directed to rescue.
Yeah, but writing these compensating, I can't say the word now, notes, it was 36 hours after the event, after being, and I was slightly tired, but there was a 4th person on that floor that came down with us.
Firefighter Orchard says in her statement that she said that 6 people were in. She was told that 6 people were in flat 113 on floor 14. Do you remember that at all?
Not at all, no.
Did you ever take a photograph of your cuff upon which you recorded the flat number?
No, not at all.
Who was your crew manager?
Crew manager, Ben McAlonen.
Now, was he behind you or near you when you were briefed before you were deployed up the tower?
He possibly could be, but basically we were being moved from the lobby to the bridgehead, so I think he got deployed after. I'm not sure if it was after or before, so we wouldn't have been there at the same time, most probably.
So you weren't briefed at the same time?
Not at the same time, no.
Now, the next topic I'd like to discuss with you is your deployment to floor 14 itself and the timings. Now, the phrase we've been using is tallying out when
Okay,
you've departed.
yes.
And that's 0226 and tallying back in when you return to the entry control point at 247. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, well, it could be, yes.
Now, a group consisting of firefighters Cornelius, Murphy and Merrion had returned to the bridgehead around 0219 from the 14th floor. Do you remember coming across them when you were at the bridgehead?
No, not at all.
I wanted to now talk to you about conditions on the 14th floor itself. Now, was there a difference between the smoke conditions you encountered on the 14th floor itself compared to the stairwell?
No, it was the same. From bridgehead to the 14th floor, complete black, thick smoke.
Okay. And as you were going up the tower, did you try and use your radio, if you had one?
Yes.
And at what floor did you try and use your radio?
It could have been on the 13th floor.
And were you able to get through to the bridgehead?
No, I don't think so.
No. Was the situation that, put bluntly, the line was dead, or was it there was so much traffic you couldn't break through?
Well, we tried to make contact, and you try to get through, no answer. You just assume they're busy or it's not working.
Okay. And did you have your mobile phone with you?
I did actually, it was in my pocket.
Yeah. Did you use it?
No, I was wearing fire gear and gloves. It'd be impossible to take that out of your pocket and operate a mobile phone. The only reason it was in my pocket because it happened to be there and it actually went up with me.
When you were actually in the lobby of the 14th floor itself, could you make out the door numbers if you went up very close to the door itself?
Well, this is why we ended up on the 13th floor. We ended up on the 13th floor thinking it was the 14th floor. We got onto the 13th floor and realised the numbers of the doors weren't what we were looking for because we were counting as we went up because we could not see numbers on the actual lobbies themselves, and it became apparent we were on the wrong floor. Then we went one floor up and found where we needed to be.
Now, when you were on the 14th floor itself, was the smoke density such that you had to get down on the floor in order to sweep round the 14th floor?
There was no need to get on the floor because the smoke was ceiling to floor. It was pointless to do that.
Okay. Now, is it right to say that you met your crew manager and firefighter Juggins on the 14th floor?
Yes, I did, yes.
And you made out the presence of your crew manager by his voice, is that right?
It wasn't his voice, his stature. And I know him, I've worked with him now for a number of years now, and yes.
We discussed with firefighter Cornelius the kit you were wearing on that night. To what extent does the kit you have to wear muffle voices and affect your hearing?
It does muffle slightly, but you can make out people you do know.
And when you spotted your crew manager, did you ask him what flat he was searching for?
When I saw him on the 14th floor, I was outside of 113. I said to him, "Where have you been?" I think he told me, I can't recall, but I said, "The people we've come to get out are in here. They won't open the door."
Right. And what did you do next?
Well, basically, we knocked and shouted again, "Fire brigade, we're here to get you down."
And if I could ask you to turn to page 4 of your witness statement, and it's the bottom paragraph, 3 lines from the bottom. You say this in respect of flat 113, the subject of your task. The flat we'd been tasked with, flat 113, I'm not sure which of us knocked on the door. Maybe it was both of us. We were shouting, "Fire brigade, we are here to get you." And then turning over the page to page 5, I think an adult male opened the door, but I believe the adult female was the first person we assisted out of the flat, so maybe she opened the door. Do you recall that the occupiers of flat 113 were initially reluctant to open the door?
They were, yes. They were very reluctant to leave, basically, because they were in safe air, clean, safe air in that flat. And you could see from where we were standing in the hallway in thick black smoke, you could see completely clearly the people, the silhouettes, and make them out, really.
And Firefighter Orchard, where was she standing when you were at the door of flat 113?
I'm not quite sure if she's standing slightly to my right or my left. It's either her or crew manager Macalone, so I'm not sure which one was either side of me.
But she was relatively close to you.
Oh, very, yes.
She says that the occupiers slightly opened the door and you effectively made your way through. Is that a fair summary of how you gained access to flat 113?
It was actually, yes.
How far into flat 113 did you get?
I made my way into what was the lobby stroke front room to that flat, yes. Okay. And stood there and tried to assess the situation.
Okay. And what were the smoke conditions within the flat compared to the lobby?
Oh, clean air. They were, no, they weren't having major difficulties.
Do you remember saying to your crew manager words to the effect that then there is loads of people in 113 and they won't come out, they won't open the door, they won't come out? Do you remember that?
I said there's people. I don't remember saying loads of people, but I could have possibly have said that. Loads could be 1, 2, 3 or 4, I don't know.
That's what do you mean by loads?
That's what I mean.
Okay. By this stage, how much air did you have?
We did regular gauge checks, but I was pretty confident that we were fine.
Two of the occupiers of flat 113 sort of describe you as being calm but controlled panic. Would that be a fair description of your demeanour as you entered the flat?
I could have been calm but forceful, maybe. I wanted to get these people out. You know, I weren't going to hang around and put myself and other crew members in danger.
And did any other firefighters come into flat 113 with you?
I really can't answer that, sorry.
Is that you just don't remember?
I don't remember, no.
You went into the sitting room of flat 113, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
When you went in there, was it still clean air by the time you were in the sitting room?
It was clean, hazy air, because obviously the door has been open and we are letting in smoke.
Did you carry out a head count of the people who were in that sitting room?
No.
Did you form a view as to how many people were in there?
Yes, 4 people. 2 adults, 2 males, 1 female and a child.
Were lights still illuminated within that sitting room?
No, I don't think so, but you could see through the outside of the building being lighter to the dark that we were in.
Now, could I ask you to turn to page 5 of your witness statement, and it's the middle paragraph on that page, and line 4 onwards. And you say this: I saw a silhouette inside the flat. I walked into the flat, and this silhouette was an adult male. I believe he was standing in the lounge area. I said, "Fire brigade, let's go." I asked him was there anyone else in the flat. He replied, no, I am the last one. I then escorted this man out. I did not search the flat as this man was clear that there was no one else left in the premises. Now, can you help us? Where in the lounge was the silhouette standing?
This basically happened after the father, child, and mother became apparent afterwards. We got them out of the flats. They had left,
and you were certain those three had gone?
Oh yes, because I pushed them out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to. I pushed them out the door and handed them over to my colleagues.
Had you seen anyone else leave the flat other than those three?
No.
What was the visibility like in the lounge when you saw the silhouette?
It was clear but hazy.
Were you able to make out, for example, eye colour or hair colour?
No, I wouldn't. No.
What was the noise like in the flat?
There was no real noise, apart from us breathing with our breathing apparatus and talking, and there was no real noise.
Did you have your helmet on or off?
On.
On. And what was the distance between you and the man?
Maybe to where you and I are standing and seated right now.
Okay.
Maybe less.
And how well could you hear him?
Very well, yes.
And could you make out, for example, what accent he had, if he had an accent?
I could, yes.
And what accent did he have?
Middle Eastern.
Now, you'd been told there were three people in that flat.
That's what I believe I was told, yes.
There was clearly a fourth person in there.
Yes.
Given that there were more people in there than you'd been expecting, would that be a trigger for searching around the entirety of the flat to see if anyone else was in there?
No, not really, because I thought basically it was misinformed. We were sent to rescue a family. They said 3 people. It could have been 4 people. No, the facts weren't, in my eyes, weren't. No.
And you're absolutely clear that when you asked whether there was anyone else in the flat, he said, no, I'm the only one.
Yes.
Yeah. And did you ask him to repeat that? Did you ask him
No,
to...
I didn't.
No. It appears as you left flat 113, there was a discussion between you and firefighter Juggins. Is that right?
That was, yes.
Yeah. And what was the subject matter of that discussion?
We entered a cruise, and I was with firefighter Orchard. Crew manager McAlonen had left with the female, and the female, and then later the father and child had left. It became apparent that firefighter Juggins was still standing with me upstairs, and I sort of told him that he has to keep with his operative.
Now, going back to the conversation you had with the fourth individual, the man in the flat, if I could ask you to turn to your contemporaneous note, which is at Met quadruple 05520. Now, you confirmed you've read that recently. Is it fair to say that you don't mention the conversation with this man in that note?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Given he gave you confirmation there was no one else left in the flat, isn't that a sort of level of detail you'd expect to put in a contemporaneous note or not?
No, not really, because the notes were only actions that I thought we carried out. It wasn't something that I thought was going to be used as to record the incident. I thought that was being done in the bridgehead, fib board, and what we did.
The one point, clearly it would appear that the first time you mentioned the discussion with the man is in your statement. Is that fair?
No. In my statement, yes, but on that night on the incident, no.
Okay. And who else did you mention the exchange you had with the man?
When we left and went back to the bridgehead that had moved from second floor to the ground floor lobby, I said to Watch Manager Silva that flat 113 was searched and empty. We walked out of the property, out of the lobby, through the back doors. That's obviously been changed. I mentioned to Watch Manager Williams that that flat was empty, and he obviously, on that wall chart you had, he ticked off that flat was cleared. We walked outside where the ambulance service were treating these casualties, and we met the people that we rescued.
Now,
And he was on the phone to his brother.
we'll come on to that separately.
That's what I'm getting to.
yeah. We'll come on to that in a few moments. The one point I'm asked to sort of make clear on his behalf is the gentleman that you were speaking to, his name is Mr. Omar Al-Hajali, and he makes it clear that his account is that he never said that there was no one else left in the flat. He says there were several people still behind him in the lounge. What would you say to that?
No. I could see him clearly. If there are people standing behind him, I would have seen them. I walked into the mid lounge of that property.
He also says that he did not see his brother go out before him, only Mr. Talabi, who was the occupant of flat 113.
Okay.
What would be your response to that?
He didn't see his brother leave. Well, we were standing in that lobby. I only saw the 4 people I saw, and I asked him, let's go now. Is this everyone? And I got a yes. I'm not going to hang around. I've been told that flat has been searched and emptied, not searched, but you know who's in there. I mean, we're there to rescue. The door's open. Let's go. And I didn't see any other people. If there were other people, obviously I would have stayed and assisted them to leave that property.
Mr. Al-Hajali would want me to suggest to you that the account of that conversation is mistaken. Would your response be effectively that which you've already provided?
It must have been mistaken by one of our parts, yes.
Now, if I could ask you, following on from what you said about the later account, the
Yes.
later discussions after you left the tower, could I ask you to turn to page 6 of your statement? And it's the 3rd paragraph on that page. And you say, this is after you're out of the tower. As we made our journey downstairs, we had 4 residents with us. Crew manager was with the adult female, the adult male was carrying the child, the Syrian man, who was Mr. Al-Hajali, with firefighter Juggins, then myself and firefighter Orchard. The journey downstairs was not easy, there were problems with water. Now, you go over the page, and you see at the bottom of page 6, the very last 3 words are the Syrian man. And then we turn over the page. This is again outside. You say, was then talking on his mobile phone. Whether they recognised us or whether it was because we were LFB, he then said, my brother is still in there. He then went on to say, I'm still on the phone to him. He is on his knees praying. He also said, I was mistaken. I remember saying to the crew manager, oh fuck. There seemed to be some confusion, as I recall Syrian man being very clear earlier that no one else was in the flat. I said to him, don't worry, I will sort it out. I started to think, did I miss him as he was praying on his knees? I can only presume that his brother got left behind. Did Syrian man think the mixed race man was his brother, and that he initially thought he had left the flat and only realised the error once outside? Now, is that a fair summary of the exchange you had with Mr. Al-Hajali outside the tower?
Yes.
Yeah. The final few sentences of that paragraph where you say you think Mr. Al-Hajali may have confused the mixed race man with his brother. Is that something that you thought at the time, or was that a subsequent thought you've had?
No, I thought that at the time when I actually exchanged conversation with him outside while she's on the mobile phone. And that's when I made it back to the lobby area and told Watch Manager Williams that that flat wasn't completely searched, and there was a extra person, not more people, to my awareness, that were in that flat, and they needed to be assisted.
Now, Mr. Al-Hajali says that that conversation didn't take place.
Which one?
The conversation we've just been dealing with now.
It did.
Thank you. Now, could I retrack our steps and go back to the tower?
Yes.
You came down the tower and you returned to the bridgehead at the end of your mission. Now, to whom did you report when you returned to the bridgehead?
Watch Manager De Silva.
Doing the best you can now, what did you say to her?
I told her 113 was not searched, was empty. There was no one left.
Did you say at the bridgehead that it was empty because that had been confirmed by, quotes, the Syrian man to whom you referred?
No, it was confirmed by me. I believe that was empty.
And did you confirm to the bridgehead that you hadn't carried out a final search of flat 113 before you came down?
This is the whole thing. We weren't told to go and search these flats. We were told to go and there are people waiting to be rescued, to be assisted down. If you were in that situation behind that door, waiting to be assisted down, you'd be ready to go. I mean, that's the only way I can see it. You know, if you were in that predicament, open the door, let's go.
Could I ask you, just to deal with the numbers point?
Yes.
Could I ask Paul, could you bring up Met 000158824? Now, if that could be expanded so that we can see the numbers 113, open brackets, 3 rescues, closed brackets. Which I think is at the top. So it's really unclear. I apologise, Ms. Herrera. It's not coming up terribly clearly.
I can see it though.
Have you got it?
I can see it.
Yes. There it refers to 3 rescues. Now, obviously you brought down 4 people.
Yes.
Do you know who wrote down that information on the wall?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
No. Are you sure you informed the bridgehead that 4 people had come down?
Yes. Well, no. I informed them that flats had been searched and emptied. The 3 people, that's the information they gave us, and they must have been going on what they had.
So at the bridgehead, they didn't know that 4 people had come down as opposed to the 3 that were subject matter of the FSG?
That's what it seems to be, yes. But I thought that wasn't relevant at the time because they were just saying there was a family in there. I didn't know that 4th person wasn't a member of that family.
Could I ask you Paul, could I ask you to turn up Met document 000158815? And then, do you recall seeing this?
Was that in the lobby area?
At the bridgehead?
Bridgehead?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember seeing that, sorry.
Did you see Group Manager Williams?
That was it. That was in the lobby then, if that is there.
Okay.
Not the bridgehead.
Now, if we look in the right-hand column, that has 112, and it looks 14, and then 8p.
Yes, I can see what you're showing me, yes.
Did you see Group Manager Williams...
Watch Manager.
Sorry, Watch Manager Williams write that?
No.
No. Did you see anyone write that?
No.
That? No. Did you see Watch Manager De Silva write anything? Recording?
No.
After you'd met the Syrian man outside the tower,
Yes.
is it right that you went back into the tower to update them?
Yes, I did.
And, sorry to retract things, but who did you speak to when you went back in?
I spoke to Watch Manager Williams, who was in the lobby area on that board. I said, I know him first names, he's a friend of mine. Glyn,
Yep.
113. There's still a person. I've spoken to the brother, he's on the phone to him. There's a person in there that needs to be rescued.
And what did he do with that information? First of all, did he write it down anywhere?
I'm not sure what he did. I can tell you what he told me to do.
What did he tell you to do?
He told me to put another set on, find someone else, go back up there and get them out.
And what did you do then?
I told him I wasn't capable. I was in no conditions to...
But you just come down?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what did he then do once you said that?
He said go to the bridgehead and tell De Silva, Watch Manager De Silva, that that floor isn't searched and to send another crew to rescue that person.
Okay, so you went up to her, is that right?
Yes.
What did she do with that information?
I won't be able to tell you. I just passed it on. I didn't stay around to.
Let's take it stage by stage. She passed it on. Did she write it down on it?
No, I don't know.
You don't know?
I passed on the information to her. I don't know what she did with it.
Okay. Now, later on in the evening, is it right that you joined up with your crew to recuperate? So your crew manager, firefighters, Juggins,
Yes.
Orchard Evans and Bloxham. And that was outside the leisure centre, is that right?
Yes, it was, yes.
Yeah. And did you tell them about the further information you'd gathered from Mr.
Well,
Ahajali?
crew manager McAlonen was present when this was all happening. He suggested to me to go back and inform them that there was a person still left in that flat. Because he was there whilst we walked out, we recognised the people. And then we realised there was an error.
And were you aware, on the night itself, of the efforts of Ms. Ahajali trying to get back into the tower?
No.
Were you aware of any other FSG calls in relation to flat 113 later on in the night?
No.
When did you first become aware of what had happened to the occupants of flat 113?
I became aware of the occupant, not occupants, that evening watching the television.
And did you discuss it with your crewmates back at Lambeth once you found out that information?
I was at home at that time, and I phoned crew manager McAlonen and said, "This is. Have you seen what's on the news?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yes, I have."
Thank you. There's a final topic of matters very different to the ones we've just been discussing that I'd like to discuss with you. It's a technical matter. It's raised at page 4 of your statement. I don't necessarily need to take you to it, but you describe how leaky feeders can assist with comms, but are more suitable for the underground. First of all, what is a leaky feeder?
Leaky feeder is basically a booster box. Leaky feeder or a booster box, you can place them, and it will help with comms. It'll just boost the signal.
And why are they more appropriate underground as opposed to
Well,
overground?
I wouldn't say it's more appropriate, but they do work well in areas where you don't have an aerial signal.
Do you know whether any were available or used at Grenfell Tower on the night of the fire?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Can you explain what is a radio repeater? Is that different to a leaky feeder?
They're very similar. I think leaky feeders can be used with cables to connect one to another. A radio repeater is slightly different.
In the sense it can't be connected to other devices, is that right? Okay. And do you know whether there were radio repeaters in use?
No, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
You explained in your statement, how you attempted to go back into the tower for a second time.
Yes.
But you were prevented from doing so by a watch manager, which you'd already been in once.
Yes.
Why do you think the watch manager wanted fresh wearers?
Obviously, you're fresh. You're basically we're spent basically.
Thank you. Mr. Herrera, thank you. Those are all the questions I've got for you at the moment. Sir, might I ask for a 5-minute break to see if there's any final questions, and then...
Should have one. Is 5 minutes going to be long enough?
I think so.
We're going to have a short break now, Mr. Herrera, so that Mr. Cornelius can consider whether there's any other ground that he needs to cover. So we'll rise now. I think I'm going to say we'll resume at 20 to 3. Is that right?
Yes.
Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. And we'll come back, as I say, at 20 to 3 and see if there are further questions.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to the usher, please. Okay. Right, 20 to 3 then, please.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, Mr. Kinnear, a few more questions?
There are, sir.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Herrera, and I think Mr. Kinnear does have a few more questions.
Ms. Herrera, thank you very much for coming back. Just a few more supplemental questions. First of all, are you aware of the terms of Policy 803, search and rescue procedures?
I must be aware, yes.
Are you aware?
Yes.
Yeah. And are you aware of the provision that where a casualty is discovered, it's necessary to perform a secondary sweep of the immediate vicinity? Are you aware of that provision?
Yes, but this wasn't a standard search and rescue. This was just like an FSG, go to that property, these people are waiting for you. It wasn't a casualty sweep. This wasn't a standard, I'm going into a flat where people may be or may not be, and I'm searching for them. They are waiting for me to be rescued.
You said you saw the family of 3 leave.
Yes.
Where were you when you saw them leave?
I was by the door. I actually pushed them towards the exit.
So at the flat entrance door?
Yes. Or standing in and pushed towards the exit where they helped along.
Did you see from where within the flat those 3 had come from?
They were actually by the entrance.
Okay. They weren't. Could the position be that they'd come from the bedroom?
I can't answer that. Sorry.
When did you, just to get the chronology right, did you see those 3 leave? Then did you re-enter the flat, and that's when you saw the silhouette? Is that the time sequence?
I didn't exit completely. I was always in that hallway entrance to the flat. I went to the door, but I didn't actually physically leave the flat until I physically left with the last gentleman.
You said earlier on that you were in the middle of the lounge.
Yes.
So at some stage you went from the exit into the middle of the lounge.
Yes.
Now my question is, did you do that after the family of 3 had left, or before they left?
I'm not sure. It could be after they left.
Now, Mr. Al-Hajali would want me to say that you didn't come in to the lounge, that you weren't in the middle of the lounge. What would you say to that? What would be your response?
I was there that night. I know what I did. I spoke to the gentleman. He was there. I was there. I didn't make this up. I was there in the lounge with him.
After you had your conversation with Mr. Al-Hajali, did you have sufficient air to allow you to conduct a search of the remainder of the flat, so the bedroom, the kitchen, and any other areas?
I most probably did. I wouldn't be able to tell you now because I didn't check, because in my mind that was the last person and we were exiting and we were going, so I had no need to check and see if I had enough air.
At that time, given the conditions you'd encountered on the way up and in the lobby, were you yourself concerned to get down as soon as you could safely?
Slightly, yes, yes.
And did that inform the approach you took to getting the people out of flat 113?
The approach I took was, rapid. I wanted these people out there quickly because we are in a thick, black, smoke-logged lobby, and it's flammable gases. It could go wrong at any time. I just wanted us and the people we were rescuing out of that property as quickly as possible.
Did you have time to conduct, given the size of flat 113, did you have time to look into the bedroom and the other rooms?
I possibly could have, yes. Do you want to know why I did not do it?
Yes.
I assumed there was no one in there to search and look for.
On the basis of what you say you were told?
Yes.
Can I ask this? As far as you were aware, were you the last person to leave the flat?
I was the last person to leave the flat, yes.
So
as far as I was aware.
The person you were talking to, who you say told you that there was no one else, left in front of you?
Left in front of me, yes, sir. No one left behind me. I I left. Firefighter Juggins left down the... I left the property. Firefighter Juggins, who was outside, followed on. And then we left. Firefighter Orchard and myself, we both left and followed down, awaiting for someone in that party to fall, to be collected, to be assisted. In my mind, I was the last person to leave that property, yes.
Thank you.
And as the last person to leave that property, whilst it was just you, did you hear any noise come from any of the rooms within that flat?
No.
And
I did shout loudly, "Fire brigade, come on, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go now." Very, very loudly.
Could I now turn to your discussion you had with Mr. Juggins? Did Mr. Juggins offer to do a search of a flat on floor 14 or floor 14, the lobby itself?
No, Firefighter Juggins stayed with me when I believed he should have gone with his BA wearer. As a team, he should have left. And he said to me, I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I'm staying with you because I want to search and find more people." I said, "No, go and leave with Ben." Maybe I used different language, but maybe that was down those lines.
And before you left that flat, how would you describe your visibility?
Very, very, very poor. In the hallway, very poor.
And what were the visibility conditions within as you were on the threshold? What was the visibility looking into
You
the
could
flat?
look into the flat, you could see it was clear, reasonably clean air. Obviously, the door had been open for some time now, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, and obviously that smoke was seeping in, but you could still see it was perfectly...
Given that people were found in flat 113
What do you mean by found, sorry?
later on,
I wasn't aware of that.
I suppose the ultimate point is, why didn't you see them if they were in there, if you'd looked properly?
That's the thing, I didn't see them. They weren't there, when I was, and especially I'm being told that he was the last person. There was no need to look, in my point of view. No, that flat was empty.
Beyond talking to your crew manager about the discussions you'd had with, you described as a Syrian man in your witness statement, did you discuss those conversations with any other officer, more senior officer at Lambeth or elsewhere?
After the incident?
Yes.
Yes.
Who was that?
Well, we discuss all our incidents are usually discussed and brought around the mess table, so all the watch would have been aware of what happened on that night.
Mr. Herrera, thank you very much for your evidence today.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, well, I thank you as well for coming to give your evidence. It's valuable and we're grateful to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I say a few words, please?
Yes?
What we did on that night wasn't just us. It's a team effort, so I'm very, very, very sorry if I've let anyone down or not done what was expected of me. I'm very sorry.
Thank you very much. Would you like to go with the usher now?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
So,
Mr.
may I call
Kiddy.
the next witness, who is firefighter Nikki Upton?
Yes, and as far as you know, the present arrangements...
Do
are
arrangements,
right,
just paperwork, so
well, I'll sit here while the paperwork is
thank you, sir.
organised, yes. Has the paperwork been organised?
It's been rejected.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the
and
truth.
nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Ms. Upton. Sit down and make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
All right? Yes, Mr. Clare.
Good afternoon. First of all, could you confirm your name for the record, please?
Yes, Nikki Upton.
Thank you very much for coming along to give evidence today. In front of you, you've got a blue folder. Behind the first tab is hopefully your statement, dated the 20th of October 2017.
Yeah.
And behind the next tab, hopefully, is your contemporaneous note. And behind that, hopefully, then 2 exhibits that were attached to your statement. Is that right?
Yeah.
And have you read those? And have you read those documents recently?
Yes, yeah.
And do you confirm their contents are true?
To what I believe to be true, yeah.
And are you content for those documents to stand as your evidence of the inquiry?
Yes.
First of all, could I just establish some basic details? First of all, at the time of the fire, you were based at Chelsea, is that right?
Yes, correct.
And that you'd had 7 years' experience with the LFB?
Yeah.
And that on the night you were the driver of Chelsea's FRU unit?
Yeah.
And the call sign for that is Golf 346?
Yeah, that's right.
And the other people on the FRU were your BA partner, Mr.
Yeah.
Reddington, Mr. Codd,
Yes.
Mr. Syme, is it Mr. Ocko?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And as to timings, is it right that you were mobilised at 01:33, on the road at 1:36, and at the scene at 1:47? Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Now, first of all, the first topic I'd like to deal with is the view of the tower on your arrival. Was it apparent that people were trapped in the higher floors
As in when I got off the truck and when I was actually there?
when you arrived at the tower? Yes.
Yeah, I think it took a moment. There was a bit of a holding area. It took a moment to look up at the building, and I remember seeing sort of lights from the upper floors being shone from the windows. So it looked like people's mobile phone maybe being shone from the higher floors.
And given the nature and extent of the fire, did you expect to be deployed as part of an EDBA crew during the course of the evening?
Yes, I would have expected that, yeah.
Now, you referred there to the holding area. Did anyone tell you to go there once you arrived at the scene?
No, I think we took our sets straight off the truck because, like I say, we knew we'd need them, and went to go and see what we'd need to do. And there was a tree on the corner, and we just sort of collated there. I think people were being given instructions and stuff from there. So we collated there for a minute, got an instruction to go and do something, and then went back to there.
So effectively, people went there to be assigned tasks, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was an official place. It was just sort of where we happened to congregate to start with.
And it was the Hammersmith watch manager, Paul Watson, who was in charge, was it?
Well, I don't think he was in charge. I think I just remember seeing him and him giving us our first instruction.
Was there a sense when you attended the holding area of any sense of priority being given to particular tasks?
I think there was lots of people everywhere being given lots of different tasks. The first thing that we were told is to go and get as much equipment as we could carry, which we went and did. When we come back, there was the aerial ladder needed to be moved, and there was hose in the way of that needing to be moved, so we helped with moving that out of the way. There's lots of different tasks in lots of different places.
Did you have any sense when you arrived at the holding area that the early identification of EDBA crews was a priority, so that they could be assigned to the BA main control centre?
Yeah, I think obviously from when we first got there, the first task was to go and get equipment. So yes, we knew we would have been needed as EDBA, but that wasn't the first thing that we were instructed to do.
in terms of slightly different point, but in terms of paramedics, do you remember whether they'd established a casualty clearing area outside the tower at this stage?
The first interaction I had with paramedics was when we come back from going to get equipment, come back to the tree area. There were two paramedics, crew manager Stern, Jamal Stern, had come out of the building and had found two paramedics and said that they were needed inside the building. They'd understandably said that they couldn't go near the building because debris falling everywhere. So we were to bring the casualty out to them, which we did, and then I think they retreated back to, I don't know whether it was an official casualty handling area, but it was a bit further away.
Were you aware of any senior LAS staff on duty at that stage? Did you see anyone?
Not to my knowledge, like these two paramedics, but I couldn't have told you their rank or anything.
You mentioned that you were commissioned by the Hammersmith watch manager to collect hose and other forms of equipment. Do you think that was the most urgent task for an FRU team that had EDBA, given the state of the fire at that stage?
Possibly not, but I think it was a case of we need everything. Maybe he didn't see the sets on our back as EDBA, but we needed a lot of equipment. We were clearly needing all hands on deck. So I think, yeah.
I suppose my blunt question is, given that you were the EDBA crew, did you push yourselves forward to Mr. Watson so that he knew that an EDBA crew was there and could be deployed?
Not initially, no. We went to do the task that we were briefed to do, but once we come back, we sort of, maybe it was then actually that we looked up at the tower and saw that things were escalating quite dramatically and said to each other, we need to get involved, we need to get stuck in, let's go in.
That was a conversation you had with Mr. Reddington, is that right?
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to collect the hose and other forms of firefighting equipment?
I think the first few trucks that we passed were all stripped of gear, as you'd expect. So I think we probably had to go about 5 or 6 trucks deep. So that maybe would have taken, I don't know, we're worrying, so about 5 minutes maybe.
Okay. Now, the next topic I'd like to discuss with you is your entry into the tower. And page 5 of your witness statement, in the first substantive paragraph, you mentioned there the conversation you intimated to earlier with Mr. Reddington, that you say that you decided in the second line, Mr. Reddington said that we needed to be more proactive and get our sets on and go in, as we had extended duration breathing apparatus. Is it right to say that you were never actually ordered to enter the tower at that stage?
Yeah, that's correct. Sort of, we took it upon ourselves, knowing that we've got EDBA, we knew we'd be needed and to...
Were you aware of the BA main control area outside the tower, run by Watch Manager Kipling?
No.
Is it fair to say that no officer sought to prioritise your EDBA role before you took it upon yourselves to go in the tower?
Not outside of the tower, no. Inside we were sort of pushed forward, I would say, but not outside that I recall.
Do you think you could or should have sought to be deployed sooner than you were as an EDBA crew, given the state of the fire?
I don't think there was that much time really between our arrival and getting into the tower. Like I say, went to go and grab some equipment, come back, and then it was like, right, okay, let's get in there.
Now, looking at the timings themselves, the LFB records in respect of BA suggest that the EDBA was disconnected from the FRU at 0150, switched on at 0228, and then there was tally out at the bridgehead at 0244. At first blush, there seems to be 54 minutes or so between disconnect and tally out at the bridgehead.
Mm-hmm. Longer than I thought then.
That's why I was, given that, there's a greater elapse of time than you recall, is that fair?
Yeah, I still don't think a lot of that time would have been outside. I think once we got into the tower and made our way up through, I can't really allocate where that time was really. Maybe it was longer to get the equipment than I thought. But it didn't seem that long.
And were you aware of what your fellow Chelsea FRU crew members were doing at that stage?
Yeah, so initially, I think Alan Syme went up on the aerial, I think, and me and Tom were together, and crew manager Cod and firefighter Oko were together, and I believe we all went into the tower together, us four, and then I think broke up into two separate BA teams.
And did you then lose track of where they were?
I lost track of the other two, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to talk about the BA entry and deployment and your trip from the lobby to the bridgehead itself. And this is dealt with at page 5 in your first substantive paragraph of your witness statement, but we don't necessarily need to go to it. Now, when you dealt with the watch manager in the lobby, do you recall one of the watch managers writing FSG details on the walls?
In the lobby where, sorry? As in not before the bridgehead?
Yes.
I don't recall that name.
Could I ask Paul to draw up a MET document, MET quadruple 05774? Do you remember seeing that?
On the ground floor?
At the lobby?
No.
Okay. And so you didn't absorb any of the content?
Right.
Did the watch manager in the lobby give you or your team any instructions regarding FSGs?
No, I actually don't even remember encountering people in the lobby.
Okay.
It's all very hazy, that bit to me. No, not that I recall.
No. Moving forward to the bridgehead itself, who briefed you on your task?
Watch managers O'Keefe and De Silva.
And what precisely did watch manager O'Keefe tell you to do?
We were briefed with going to the 21st floor. There's a bit of confusion here because in my head I have it was 21st floor and it was flats 183 and 184, and I've since been made aware that my contemporaneous notes say something different.
I was going to come on to that.
Yeah.
So it may be easy if we turn to your contemporaneous note, which is at MET quadruple 05625 underscore treble 01. And we see just roughly below halfway down the page, you say we were then tasked to go under air and commit to the 21st floor to FSG calls at flats 182 and 183.
Yeah.
Which do you think is correct now?
Well, that makes me doubt myself now. In my head, since the incident, I believe I've got 183 and 184, but I don't know whether that's because it rhymes with the 21st floor. I'm not really too sure. I thought it was 183 and 184, but like I say, that's making me doubt myself now.
Okay.
I can't definitively remember the words. It would have been watch manager O'Keefe, and I remember the 21st floor, but I can't exactly remember which flats now. One of those two options.
Okay. Were you given any more detail, for example, conditions on the stairwell going up to the 21st floor?
Don't recall, no.
Do you remember being given any idea of the layout of the 21st floor?
Yes, we were. I don't know who did it, but at one point we were taken to a wall on the left-hand side of the lifts, where somebody showed us a map. I can't really even remember what was on the wall, but somebody did try to say, this is the layout and this is where you would go in.
And did you make any note of where flats 183, 182, 183, 184, whatever it was, were?
No, not to my. I think it was more like where the stairwells were, where the doors were off the stairwells, and
Were you given any details as to occupants of those particular flats? How many there were? Any vulnerabilities? Any children?
No, not to my knowledge.
Were you given any idea of conditions within the flats themselves?
Mm.
No. And were you aware that you'd been specifically deployed to the 21st floor because you were EDBA wearers?
I had guessed, yeah, that's why we've been sent up so high, is because we had more of the capacity to get up that high with more air.
But you weren't told explicitly?
No.
Okay. Now, if I can now talk about your deployment to the 21st floor and you're making your way up the tower. Now, it's right, isn't it, that you discovered a casualty at about the 18th floor level? Is that
what I believe to be the 18th floor? There was no way of telling the floors, and twice myself and Tom had to enter the lobby areas at various floors just to remotely figure out what floor we were on, which we found extremely frustrating at the time. So it was what I guesstimate to be the 18th, because I knew I went into the lobby area and found flat 16416 something. And it was a couple of floors up from that, so I was guessing it was the 18th.
okay. And it was a female casualty you found?
It was, yeah.
And she was unresponsive, is that right?
She was unresponsive. She was lying face up on her back down the stairs.
Apologies for interrupting.
No, it's okay.
And are you able to provide a description of the female casualty you found?
She
Would you like a break?
That's okay.
Are you okay?
It was only by getting up really sort of close and basically, touching her with my hands that I could figure out exactly that she was a woman to start with. She had a black top on and jeans. Again, that's all just me being really close with my torch, and I would have guessed a similar-ish age to me.
I think in your statement you refer to maybe mid-30s.
Yeah, nobody knows how old I am. Mid-30s, something like that.
Okay.
Asian looking, but she might have just been smoke blackened. I don't really know.
And were you able to assess height or anything like that?
Oh,
No.
average.
If you can't.
Average height. I don't really recall.
And whilst you were attempting to move the female casualty, you found a child, is that right?
Yeah, so the female casualty was lying down the stairs, and I tried to move her and she wouldn't move. And with a bit of investigation with my hands and my torch, it became clear that she wasn't moving because her leg was trapped. So I don't know quite how she'd fallen like it, but her left leg had gone down between the banisters and her foot was tucked up under the ledge of the next platform. And I was tugging and tugging and tugging. I told Tom the situation that we had, and he was tugging, and we couldn't move her. So I moved further up the stairs to try and free her, and that's when, I came across the child who I believe was on the platform of that level.
And are you trained to carry out checks for signs of life in respect of unresponsive casualties?
Yes, yeah. And
did you perform any checks on the female casualty?
No, aside from me sort of patting her all over and no. I've got gloves on, so I wouldn't have been able to check for a pulse or anything like that. But if somebody's patting you all over, if you're alert, you're gonna say something or respond. So she was unresponsive, and I couldn't tell whether she was alive or not.
And were you able to carry out any checks on the child to see whether the child was responsive?
No, again, like I say, I dragged her, so if she was alert, she would have, come round, but no, I didn't take a pulse or anything like that.
And do you have any first aid kit with you when you're deployed or not?
No.
Were you aware of any other casualties in the area around the 18th floor on the stairwell whilst you were dealing with the female casualty and the child?
No, not on the stairs. I didn't go up further than finding the child on that platform. I sort of dragged her from the platform, but there was nobody in the immediate area.
And you took the child down the stairwell and left the female casualty there? Yeah,
we decided between us that the female casualty couldn't be moved. She was trapped to such a degree that, we figured out later, we either have to stand her up completely or break her leg somehow to get her out. And I didn't know the state of either casualty, whether they were alive or had passed away, but I knew that any more time spent on the woman who we were really struggling to free and couldn't free, any more time spent on that would have jeopardised the child more, so we made the decision to take the child out who we could carry.
You brought the child down to the bridgehead.
Yeah.
And who did you brief once you got back down to the bridgehead?
I can't remember definitively who I briefed. Watch Manager O'Keefe, the same people would have been at the bridgehead. I remember seeing a crew manager from Tooting, but we would have passed on that information. I also saw a crew on our way down from the 18th floor while we were carrying the child, and said to them that we've left a woman behind, we didn't get to the 21st floor.
And did you tell the officers at the bridgehead that you hadn't got to the 21st floor?
Yes, yeah.
And Were you aware of any actions taken thereafter to get up to the 21st floor?
I don't know.
You had a second EDBA task later on in the evening, is that right?
Yes.
Now, we don't need to turn to it. It's set out at page 10 of your witness statement. It was an EDBA mission, namely search and rescue on the 9th floor. Is that right?
Yeah.
And who deployed you on that mission?
I believe it was Pat Goldberg.
Pat Goldborn.
Goldborn, yeah.
And can you remember the precise words of his instructions or the gist of the words he used in his instructions to you?
I think it was just 9th floor search and rescue. Do your best to clear the flats as best you can.
Can you help us at what time you were deployed on that?
What time?
You were deployed on that second EDBA mission.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the telemetry data.
Were you given any information when you were deployed as to any change in the strategy, search and rescue, as opposed to targeted FSG responses?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
When you were briefed by Mr. Goulbourne, were you given any further information as to whether there had been a change in strategy, i.e. it's search and rescue rather than a direct response to a particular FSG?
No, other than, the actual brief was search and rescue and no flat numbers were given. No.
Based on your experience and having got as high up the tower as you did on the night, just with one other BA partner, what were your views on the ability to evacuate the tower when you were there, so 2:30 in the morning, thereabouts?
What, as in?
Would you been able? What were your
so
views
if we
on
had
the
got to the
feasibility?
21st floor?
On the feasibility, one, could you have got to the 21st floor? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, two BA wearers being tasked with 2 flats. I mean, best case scenario, there's 1 person in each flat, which is quite unlikely. I don't know if we really had a plan of action. I think we were just going to get up there, see the situation, see what we were dealing with. In hindsight, I think the best we could have come up with was, because we didn't have a set or anything like that, maybe just the stairwell was really smoke logged. They wouldn't have been able to breathe for long. Best I was thinking was get them out into the stairwell, get them as far as they could, and then assist them the rest of the way in terms of carrying them, or as best we could, really. It wasn't feasible. It wasn't really feasible, but it was best of a bad situation.
I suspect I know the answer to this, but would it have been practicable for you to have taken up a second BA set in addition to carrying your own ED BA set?
It would have been possible. It's not sort of standard, and with every firefighter there having their own BA set, not many firefighters are going to want to give up a BA set. There's not sort of a stack of spare BA sets hanging around. You would have to have taken one off a firefighter. So that wasn't too feasible.
Okay. And were larger crews than just 2 required for EDBA work, do you think?
You can go in more. Again, it depends sort of how many people you're going up to help, what conditions there are. Yeah, I think it's easier working in a crew of 2 because you've only got to keep tabs on each other. Like if there's a crew of 4, you've got to make sure where everyone is, what everyone's doing, make sure that you're all okay. So it's harder to negotiate a crew of 4 as opposed to a crew of 2, but it's not undoable.
Do you have any views on the feasibility of evacuating the residents who were in the tower, who remained in the tower at 2:30 in the morning? Would that have been feasible in your view, given the conditions you'd encountered on the stairwell?
As a mass evacuation? Not without assistance, no. The stairwells were unmanageable.
You say they're unmanageable. First of all, were there any obstructions on the stairwell that you encountered going up?
Yeah, so, I mean, firstly, visibility past the 4th floor was non-existent. And then, I think what a lot of people were doing on their exit from the building was sort of grabbing rags or whatever they could and holding them over their faces, and things were discarded all over the place. So on many occasions I came across bundles of things which I obviously had to check and make sure they weren't people. There was quite a lot, and hoses and other bits of kit. There was quite a lot on the way up, at least on the earlier floors.
Would it have helped evacuation if firefighters had been stationed on the stair point to help residents being evacuated down? and assisting their transit down the tower?
Yeah, in theory, yeah, if they had the equipment and means to be able to do that. But if they're just breathing in smoky air, they're still not gonna.
What equipment do you think they would have needed if that were to be practicable?
I've heard mention and seen evidence of these individual face masks that I've seen since that would have been very, very helpful to get anyone through a smoky environment, even if it's 2 floors or 1 floor. They're gonna come into harm. So when you're talking about from the 21st floor, they would have needed some sort of aid to get them down there. So those bits of where we've got the face mask and the individual breathing supply on those, they would have been superb.
But given your experiences in the tower at say 2:30 in the morning, would it have been practicable to have executed a floor by floor evacuation?
I feel like that's a question for the officers, really.
Fair enough.
It's not my call, that one.
No, what you can tell us, and I think you have already, is what were conditions like which you would have to get people through?
What were they like?
Yes.
From the 4th floor upwards, we would have been unable to get people out of there. It was really, really heavily smoke logged from the 4th floor upwards. Nobody would have been able to breathe.
Just one final question, and that's radio comms. But what was your experience of the operation of radio comms on the night within the tower?
I believe radio silence. I don't recall receiving any comms whatsoever.
And did you try and radio back to the bridgehead, say, when you discovered the casualties at around the 18th floor?
I think I tried earlier on when we were lower down the building and received nothing back. And I think because then we'd had silence the whole way up, I don't think I tried on the 18th floor because I think I just presumed that it was not possible.
Thank you. So those are all the questions I've got for now. Might I ask for a very brief break to see whether there are any supplementals?
Yes, of course. Well, Ms. Upton, it may be that after further consideration, Mr. Kinnear will have some more questions he'd like to put to you. So we'll have a 5-minute break now, and then have to ask you to come back and see where we are. Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room, and if you'd like to go with the usher, we'll resume at 3:30. Will that be all right, Mr. Kinnear?
I think so. Thanks, sir.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Right, 3:30 then, please.
So,
Yes, Mr. Kinnear.
so many thanks for the break. I'm pleased to say there are no further questions for Miss Upton.
Well, I
And-
wonder if we should just invite her in to say that, tell her
Fine.
that and say thank you. Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Upton. Now, Mr. Kinnear.
Miss Upton, I'm pleased to say there are no further questions for you, so it just leaves me to say thank you very much for coming to attend the inquiry today. Your evidence has been very helpful.
Thank you.
Yes, it's good of you to have come. I hope it hasn't been too difficult an experience, and we're grateful to you for telling us about your experiences within the tower. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, now you're free to go, so the usher will see you around.
Thank you.
So with your permission, the sixth witness of the day is Benjamin McAlonen.
Yes, thank you. Yes, a little bit of housekeeping, but has the paperwork been
The
organised?
paperwork has been adjusted, sir.
Well done, thank you.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the
and
truth.
nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. McAlonen. Sit down, make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kinnear.
First of all, good afternoon. Would you please confirm your name for the record?
Benjamin McAlonen.
And thank you very much for attending the inquiry to give evidence today. It's much appreciated. In front of you, there's a blue file. If you open it, and behind the first tab, hopefully you'll find your statement dated the 6th of February of this year. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct, yep.
And if you turn over the page, hopefully that's your contemporaneous note.
Yes.
And if you turn over the final tab, there is the exhibit to your statement, namely the plan of the tower and its immediate surroundings. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yep.
And have you read those documents recently?
I have, yes.
And do you confirm the contents are true?
Yes, to my knowledge they are, yes.
And you're content for those documents to stand as your evidence in the inquiry?
Yes, I am, yes.
Thank you.
First things I should say, Mr. McAlonen, if any time you want a break, please say so. If I've asked a question which is unclear, again, please say so and I'll rephrase it. Dealing first of all with basics, is it right at the time of the fire you were crew manager based at Lambeth?
That's right, yes.
And the call sign, the appliance you were travelling in was Hotel 222?
That's correct, yep.
And you have some 15 years experience as a firefighter, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And in terms of timings on the night, you were mobilised, the LFB records indicate that you were mobilised at 01:37. Does that sound right?
I believe so. It was shortly before. Is this the appliance booking status 2?
Status 1.
Status 1's at station.
Yeah.
So booking mobile was status 2.
You're
sorry.
mobilised, then you're on the road,
Yep.
and then you arrive.
Yep.
The first stage of that, when you're mobilised, was at 0:37. Does that sound about right?
It was a short. I don't think that's correct as such. It may have been a couple of minutes before that we was actually mobile.
Now,
just
when-
because of the mobilising system.
And you think you arrived at the scene at 01:45 or thereabouts?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It may help you get a more definite time. The LFB records for the BA-ware indicate that the SDBA disconnect from the appliance was at 01:50.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
How many minutes before you disconnected had you arrived? Can you remember?
I'd say that's pretty accurate. Was it 45 you said? Was it? So yeah, I mean we arrived and then within a couple of minutes we removed the BA set from the appliance, so that would tally up with that.
Okay. First topic I'd like to discuss with you is
Sure.
what you encountered on your arrival at the tower.
Okay.
And on arrival, were you aware of any officers who were responsible for allocating tasks to those crews that were arriving at the scene?
For BA wearers, yes. That was, I believe it was Watch Manager Brown from Battersea. He was standing at the base of the tower, and he was calling forward crews basically to be ready to be sent up to the bridgehead.
And was he particularly searching for EDBA crews?
I couldn't tell you that. He didn't make it known if he was.
Now, turning to the next topic, which is entry and deployment, and your trip from the lobby to the bridgehead at the tower. Now, when you were at the lobby, is it right that Watch Manager Glyn Williams was writing FSG details on the walls?
That's right. That was on the ground floor, just inside the door on the left, I believe.
Did he give you a bit of paper to take to the bridgehead?
No.
Okay. If I could ask Paul to bring up Met document 005774. Do you remember seeing that in the lobby?
I believe it was maybe being constructed at the time. So he was continuously writing on it as we had made entry through the main entrance.
Again, could I ask you to look at the middle column and look at the bottom of that middle column? And you'll see there 113 14th. Do you remember seeing that written on the wall as you were in the lobby?
I believe I didn't look at it in that much detail, to be fair.
Okay. So is it fair to say you didn't absorb the detail
No.
at all? Before you were deployed from the bridgehead, did you see any other firefighters come down the tower from floor 14?
From the bridgehead or from the lobby?
No, when you were in the bridgehead,
Right.
did you see or meet any firefighters coming down from floor 14?
Prior to that, this was because where the mezzanine floor was, we were formed up on the mezzanine, queuing there, and then we was getting sent from there up to the actual bridgehead, which was on, I have to check my notes, I believe it was on the 3rd floor at the time. And there was Watch Manager Watson from Hammersmith. He was detailing crews from that mezzanine floor and then saying, right, we need another crew of 2, another crew, whatever. And that's who actually tasked us with our brief, if you like, or our role for where we was going. Whilst we were there was casualties coming down. I don't believe we saw firefighters come past that point. They would have only come down to just below the bridgehead, I believe.
Okay. And you think that the bridgehead at that stage was on the 3rd floor, not the 2nd floor, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Could I ask Paul to bring up Met document 00013074? Do you remember seeing those wall markings on the 2nd floor?
If that's in the lift lobby on the 2nd floor, no, because they're separate from the route up.
Okay. And so you didn't look at the detail?
No.
Okay. Going back to an earlier answer you gave, who gave you your instructions as to the task you were to discharge?
Watch Manager Watson, I believe. I didn't know his surname at the time. I just know him as Paul. He was the officer in charge of Hammersmith. But he tasked us he gave us a small piece of paper and just said there's flat 111, 14th floor.
And did he give you any detail beyond that?
He said a mother and child was in the flat. And basically to go and report to the bridgehead.
And did he give you any information regarding conditions in the stairwell, conditions in flat 111?
No, he did say there's. It was more of it, not just to me personally, but as a generic to the crews that were along the bridgehead. There was a small plan that had been drawn of a floor layout on that mezzanine floor, and he just said, obviously, everyone have a look at that and get an idea of your layout.
Okay. And was it very much entrance from lobby?
Yes, yeah, there was no actual details in location of flats. It was just literally and he explained it's basically like H shape floor layout.
Can I ask Paul to bring up document MET 000-15625? Now, do you remember seeing that writing on the wall of the 3rd floor? It's the bridgehead at the 3rd floor.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I do remember there being some writing on the wall, but that was what I saw when I came down, when I debriefed with the officer in charge of the entry control.
So were you aware of the content of that, of the detailed information that was on that?
Sorry, can we zoom in on the 14th floor
Yes.
part?
I don't know whether the clarity...
Yes, I do remember seeing that. This was when I came back down from the incident. I was debriefed with Watch Manager De Silva.
So after you'd been...
This was after I'd been into up to the 14th floor, basically. And I went through where we'd been. She crossed off 111. I think that's 112. And she wrote the free rescue on the thing, on the bar 113.
And if I could ask Paul to bring up one final photograph, that's at MET 000-18749. Do you remember seeing this forward information board at the bridgehead?
No, it may well have been there at the time. I don't recall seeing it, though.
Thank you very much. If I can now go back to the instructions you were given.
Mm-hmm.
Were you and Mr. Juggins briefed by Mr. Watson?
Yes, it was, yes.
And did you understand the reference to a lady and child to be a mother and child, or were you...
He said mother and child.
Were you given any idea as to the gender or
No.
age of the child?
No.
Are you sure that you were told flat 111 and not any other flat?
Yes, it was written on a piece of paper.
Were you aware of what instructions had been given to Mr. Herrera and Miss Orchard to go up in terms of the FSG?
I hadn't, no.
Were you aware of any other crews that had been sent up to the 14th floor in response to FSGs before you went up?
Not before I was committed, no.
Now, if I can next turn to the question of your deployment and timings. The LFB records suggest or indicate that tally out at the bridgehead was at 02:31 and tally in was at 02:45. Does that give us the time frame for your...
Yeah, I guess so. I lost all concept of time in the evening, to be honest.
Now, the next question I'd like to ask you about is conditions on the lobby of the 14th floor. Can you, when you got onto the lobby itself, can you describe the conditions you encountered?
The conditions were very poor. The smoke level was right down to the floor. It was the smoke was very thick, very black in colour, made visibility nigh on zero. It was difficult to see your hand in front of your face mask. The actual smoke itself, although it's not unusual, it seemed particularly sticky. I kept having to try and clear my face mask basically to be able to see like gauge checks and stuff like that.
And did you encounter another crew on the 14th floor?
When we first made entrance to the 14th floor, I believe I heard another crew and saw a torchlight on the actual floor, which is normally they're quite distinctive torch, like the light from the torch within the smoke. I tried to make contact with that crew, but I had no joy, and I thought rather than waste time trying to do that, excuse me, we'd carried on with our brief basically.
And how far away were you from the other crew? Could you estimate the distance?
It was difficult to say. I couldn't see across the lobby because the smoke was so thick, so I had no knowing how the distance we're talking about.
Flat 111, was the door open, ajar, unlocked?
The flat to 111 was wide open, which I thought was very unusual. If you're, in my mind, if you're someone that wishing to be rescued from a flat in a relatively safe place, you wouldn't be having your front door wide open and letting all the contents of the lobby enter the flat. So I thought that was a bit odd in my experience, if you like.
And did you go into flat 111?
We started make entry. Firefighter Juggins had a thermal image camera with him. He was searching around the flat, and I was trying to radio to entry control to find out if there's any update, further information, if they've already been rescued or something like that.
And were you able to get through?
No.
Did you knock on the door of flat 112?
We did. We then, whilst still trying to make contact with entry control, I said to Firefighter Juggins, we'll carry on searching anyway whilst we're here. We might as well try and check the rest of the floor, basically. We knocked on flat 112. We kicked the door. It's more audible, obviously, than just a knock from a gloved hand. There was no entry, so I said if we had an enforcer with us, we was going to force entry to flat 112, which is what we done.
Okay. And was there anyone within flat 112?
No.
And did you then move on to the next flat, 113?
We exited flat 112, and as we was continuing on the left-hand wall, and as we came a bit further along the corridor, we then came across another crew, which immediately, as soon as I started speaking to them, it became apparent it was a firefighter Herrera from my own station.
Okay. And you recognised his voice, or could you?
Yeah, recognise his voice.
And you say that you were told by Mr. Herrera, Ben, there is loads of people in 113, and they won't come out. They won't open the door. They won't come out.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you ask how many people precisely were within flat 113?
I didn't know.
No.
He just said that there's loads of people I don't know what he was meaning by that, but loads of people is just, to me, it's just everyday talk, if that makes sense.
And could you hear him clearly?
I could, yes.
Now, it's right that you went into flat 113, is that?
I didn't make entry. I didn't personally go inside the flat. I was still in the lobby at this time.
Okay. Was the door to 113 open whilst you were still?
No, it wasn't, no. The door was still shut, as far as I'm aware, and because he said, what are we going to do? Because I wasn't aware of exactly where flat 113 was, I just said to him, tell him we're getting them out, we're taking them down. I can't remember if I went to the door as well, but that is what we done basically. We went to the flat to go and knock on the door again and say we are coming out, if not we're going to break the door down and come in. And
did a lady come out?
It all happened very rapid, the next few moments, if you like. I remember someone... I hearing coughing, basically, a lady's coughing. And I was then obviously aware straight away that the people were now exposed to all the smoke and conditions on the lobby. I felt someone come in front of me. I reached out and grabbed, it was her arm that I grabbed. And then straight away I just thought, well, these people are now, they're breathing all this, the horrible smoke and stuff. We got to get them down straight away.
Yeah. And how many did you take down?
Initially, I had this lady by the arm, and I led her over to the stairwell because I was quite close to the door. I could literally reach out and from where I was standing to go make entry straight onto the staircase. So I started proceeding down the stairs with her, and the lady tripped and fell, and I lost a physical hold on her. I then continued down the stairs to again expecting to find the lady either on the turn of the stairs or in the vicinity. I couldn't find her. I searched that turn of the stairs. I went down the next flight of stairs, searched on that turn as well, and I couldn't find her. So I just assumed that she'd managed to get up, pick herself up and carry on.
And then you went back up to floor 14,
That's right,
is that right? And you encountered a man coming down?
Yes. Basically, I can't remember. I think it was on the last flight of stairs before the 14th floor again. Someone came past me, and I know the only reason I know it was a man is because I must have said something to him like, "Are you all right?" or something like that, and he just said, "I'm getting out." And so I said, "Okay." Well, I'm thinking in my mind, okay, he's making his own way. That's great. I can probably, or me and Firefighter Juggins can probably manage 2 people if we on the way out, if we come across them on the way down. So I went back onto the landing to find out where, like with Firefighter Juggins, and also find out if there's any more people to come down.
And did you see whether the man was carrying a child on his back?
Not at that point, no. I wasn't aware of that.
Okay. And
Later on,
when you say later on, when did you become aware of that?
Basically, when I got another guy out as well.
And this is the second man?
This is the second. Oh, sorry, the second man. Escorted him down to the stairs, went past the bridgehead down to second floor level, I believe it would have been, to hand over. There was some senior officers there that were taking the casualties off of us, and I saw that. It's only assumption at the time. A guy in front of me, he was in the corner of the stairwell, and he had a child on his back. They were lifting the child off of his back, and then that's when I was aware that there was a child with him as well.
So, by the time you got down there, were you aware that the woman, the child, and the two gentlemen had come from flat 113?
I was still unsure of the whereabouts of the woman at that time.
Okay. You returned to the bridgehead.
Yep.
What did you debrief at the bridgehead?
At the bridgehead, I went and saw Watch Manager De Silva, she was running the entry control board that my tally was in. I told her basically what we'd done. We'd been up to 111, that was clear. And as I was going through with her, she was marking it on the board that you saw a picture of. So I said then as well that we brought 3 people down. At that time, we obviously wasn't aware of the child.
Yeah.
And she said, "Is that clear?" And I said, "I can't confirm that, because I said there's another crew behind us. They should be down in a minute, and they can confirm it."
And when you said you can't confirm it, did you explain why you couldn't confirm it?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Okay. It may help if you turn to page 12 of your statement and 2 lines down from the top. You say this. I confirmed with the entry control board officer that 3 people had been rescued from flat 113, but I could not confirm that it was empty, as we had escorted people out from the landing and not searched the flat.
That's correct.
Did you tell them you hadn't searched the flat?
As far as I'm aware, I did.
Okay.
Like I say, I didn't make entry into the flat itself, so I couldn't confirm that.
When the other crew came down from flat 113, did you ask them whether they'd searched flat 113 before coming down?
Eventually.
When you say eventually, when?
This was later on outside.
Okay. How many outside when you were resting on the grassy area by the leisure centre? Is that right?
To be honest, no. Afterwards, we exited the building. Eventually, we had to force our way out of the side of it through a window. And I don't know whether you're going to come on to this shortly, I'm not sure, but we actually came across, this was some time after as well, because there was quite an amount of debris falling, if you like, from the building. So there was a covered walkway, and we was taking shelter under there whilst we was waiting for a safe moment to get away from the tower, and this was going towards Latimer Road entrance, I believe it was. Whilst I was standing there waiting, firefighter Herrera came out of the tower as well, and then we basically said, like, we've got to get back to try and find our way back to our truck to service our sets and stuff. When we eventually managed to get away from the tower, as we come up towards the corner of Latimer Road, I'm sure it's Latimer Road Station, there's like a walkway that goes down the side. And on the corner there was a guy standing on his phone, and I recognised the guy's shirt from basically he was the last gentleman that I brought down from the tower, and it was a purple coloured shirt, because I just remember it because he was right in front of me walking down the stairs. He was on his phone there, and it just sort of said to him, like, "You're all right" and stuff, but he was just on his phone, and I carried on walking round, but I'm not sure if Pete stopped to talk to him or not.
And Pete is Mr. Herrera?
Sorry, yes, firefighter Herrera.
And you're not sure whether... Was Mr. Herrera there when you recognised this gentleman from flat 113?
Yes.
And how would you describe the gentleman? What did his face look like? How tall was he?
He's not as tall as me. It was difficult to explain, to be honest. Or not explain, difficult to describe. I think he was...
So you spoke to him first, did you?
I think we didn't speak as in, I just said, "You're okay." That was literally as far as I said to him.
And what did he say to you?
He was just on his phone. He was just talking on his phone. So he didn't really acknowledge myself.
Was he speaking in English on the phone?
No.
No. And then did you just walk on?
I carried on round the corner, yes.
And where was Mr. Herrera during this?
He was with me on the side, but he was...
Side by side with you?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And did he say anything to this gentleman?
He did, yes.
Yeah. And did you stay with Mr. Herrera whilst Mr. Herrera was having this conversation?
No, I carried on walking.
Okay. And so you didn't overhear what was said?
No.
Did you ask Mr. Herrera whether he'd searched flat 113 before he came down?
No.
Are you aware of policy 803 that governs search and rescue?
Possibly. I wouldn't be able to know it by number, but yes.
Are you aware of the provision that provides that where a casualty's been found, a secondary search ought to be carried out of the immediate vicinity? Are you aware of that provision within the policy?
Yes.
Yeah. Given that they had found 4 people, or 4 people had been within flat 113, would you have expected firefighters to have carried out a secondary search before leaving?
Ordinarily, yes, in a normal fire situation.
And would you expect them to have carried out that secondary search even if they'd been told by one of the departing residents that everyone was out?
It depends how much you believe the resident, I guess. If you're taking their word for it, by any means, this was no way an ordinary incident. I think everybody was more than aware of the time restraints potentially on ourselves with our breathing apparatus capabilities, the actual conditions within the tower block and the stairwell. I myself had thoughts of, what on earth are we going to find? We're bringing these people down. We've got no protection for the residents, if you like, to escort them down the stairs. It was a bit of can't think of the right word at the minute, but it was a bit of a long shot, if you like, to try and bring them out as we did, without them, collapsing or whatever.
Going back to the conversation Mr. Herrera was having with the gentleman who's on the phone outside, you walked on. Mm-hmm. Did Mr. Herrera come up and tell you what did he say to you? The gentleman had said to him,
running up, and he said that
he ran up to you.
He ran up to me and said that guy's brother's still in there. He's on the phone to him now. He's still on the 14th floor. And
that's what Mr. Herrera said to you, to the best of your knowledge.
Yep.
Did Mr. Herrera say that the man had said there was no one else? No, in the flat?
There wasn't time. I immediately, straight away, I tried to get on my handheld radio to relay that information to someone, because we was in no position to where we were physically. There wasn't anyone local that could use that information, if you like. So I tried to contact Watchman and Sadler. I knew who was running the FSG outside, and even the bridgehead as well, but it was just impossible. There was just too much radio traffic.
With the information that Mr. Herrera brought to you, that the gentleman's brother was still within flat within flat 113, what did you do next to relay that information?
Once we'd also, as we was walking up, immediately I wanted to get back physically to where Watch Manager Sadler was collating that information for the fire survival guidance, and tell him physically. I knew the radios weren't any good. There was I was saying to local residents, how can we get back round to the front of the tower, the other side? And one of the residents, or knew the area well, he basically directed us back to where we need to be.
Okay. And do you know what further steps were taken thereafter to try and get to flat 113?
I don't, I'm afraid, no.
Okay. later on in the evening, is it right that you were recuperating with your crew outside the tower, so with Mr. Herrera, Juggins, Orchard, Evans and Bloxham? Do you remember that?
Yes, we were at some point, yes.
Yeah. And at that stage, did Mr. Herrera recall the conversation he'd had with the gentleman within flat 113?
No, the subject never came up, to be honest.
When did you become aware of the night and what happened to those who'd been left behind in flat 113?
Sorry, could you say that again, please?
Did you become aware on the night itself of what happened to those left behind in flat 113?
Not on the night itself, no.
And when did you first become aware of what had happened to them?
I believe it was maybe a couple of nights afterwards.
And how did you find out?
I think I was watching the news, and that's when I came aware of what happened.
One final point, distinct to the topics we've been discussing, and that's telemetry problems. You refer, as of pages 15 and 16 of your witness statement, to manual calculations of breathing times that you were required to carry out. Because of the difficulties over signal between the BA set and the ECB, did this have any impact on the operations during the night, in your view?
I don't think it had any sort of direct effect, if you like. I think everybody knew the capabilities of the equipment, and therefore we'd also been working on manual calculations for a number of, for a long time before that, before the new telemetry stuff came in. So we still was aware of, the right, well, I say the right way, the manual way of doing the calculations.
Mr. Maclaren, those are all the questions I've got for you now.
Okay.
So might have a brief break to see if there are any further supplementals.
Yes, of course. Well, from time to time, it's discovered that there are questions that ought to have been asked but haven't been. So I'm going to ask you to leave us for a few minutes so that Mr. Kinnear can just check the position. Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. And how long should we allow for this, Mr. Kinnear?
Sir, if you're able to return at 4:10. Or even sooner, if there is an absence of questions. It may be better if I just ask your usher.
Well, can you hold yourself in readiness to be called back
Of course,
at short
yes.
notice? But and we'll see how quickly we can do it. All right?
Certainly.
I'd like to go with the usher, please. Thank you. Mr. Kinnear, I'll say 4:10 or sooner if you're ready sooner.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kinnear.
Sir, 2 brief supplementals with your permission.
Right. Okay, we'll ask Mr. McAlonen to come back in, please. Thank you. I think Mr. Kinnear has a couple of questions.
Sure.
Ms. Maclaren, thank you for your patience. I don't know whether you've been listening to Mr. Herrera's evidence previously in the afternoon, but he said that his account was that Mr. Omar Al-Hajali had told him that when they were still in the flat, that there was no one else in the flat, flat 113. When did you first become aware that that was Mr. Herrera's recollection of what he'd been told by Mr. Al-Hajali?
Earlier. I was watching upstairs.
Okay. And had Mr. Herrera told you that he went into the lounge of flat 113 at any stage?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions, and so that just leaves me to thank you for giving evidence today. It's very much appreciated.
Well, thank you very much for coming to give your evidence. It's very valuable. And you're now free to go.
Thank you very much.
Right, go with the usher. Thank you. Now, Mr. Kinnear.
Sir, we have the 7th and final witness of the day coming up. We are just nudging 4:10.
Yes.
I think with a fair wind, we can complete at 4:30, but with your indulgence, we may stray slightly over that, but I shall strain every sinew to avoid passing over 4:30.
Right, this is Mr. Wharnsby, is it?
It is Mr. Wharnsby.
Well, I'm sure, having been waiting to give his evidence, he'd like to get it through this afternoon, so let's do our best.
I'm sure he will. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May I call Mr. Wharnsby?
Solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wharnsby. Sit down, make yourselves comfortable. I'm sorry you waited so long to give your evidence, but...
It's a very important process.
Yes, and I hope we can get it through this afternoon.
Good afternoon. For the record, will you please confirm your name?
My name's Jon Wharnsby.
And in front of you there's a blue folder, and if you open that, hopefully you'll find your statement dated the 15th of Jan of this year.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
And behind that, your contemporaneous note. Is that right?
That's correct.
Have you read those documents recently?
I've had a look over them this afternoon, yeah.
And you confirm the contents are true?
There's some inaccuracies, but nothing too...
Nothing material?
Nothing material, no.
And are you content for those documents to stand as your evidence to this inquiry?
I am, yes.
Now, if you need a break, please shout. If any of my questions are unclear, shout, and I'll try and make them clearer.
Of course.
Now, dealing with basics first, you're a firefighter based at Shoreditch and were at the time of the fire, is that right?
That's correct.
And that you've had 17 years' experience as a firefighter?
That's correct, yeah.
And that on the night you were the driver of appliance whose call sign was Foxtrot 241?
Correct.
And that your BA partner on the evening was Firefighter Low, is that right?
Firefighter Low, yeah.
As to timings, the LFB's records indicate that you were mobilised at 0205, mobile at 0207, and arrived at the scene at 0221. Does that sound about right to you?
That sounds correct, yeah.
And although we'll come back to it in more detail, the timings of your BA were, the records provided by the LFB suggest that you tallied out at the bridgehead at 0304. Does that sound about right?
Sorry, the term tallied out, you mean...
People have used tallied in as the confusingly as the alternative.
I was committed to BA around that time, yeah.
Thank you. Now, the first topic I'd like to discuss with you is you're at the tower going from the lobby to the bridgehead.
Yes.
Now, do you recall a watch manager writing FSG details on the wall of the lobby right when you entered the building?
We didn't muster in the lobby, we mustered on the mezzanine floor. and we were waiting to be committed to the bridgehead. All I remember is a rather good drawing been done on the mezzanine level floor by a previous firefighter, so which gave the layout where the stairs were, where the flats were off the stairs, which was quite handy. I don't recall the information you're talking about now.
And did a watch manager give any member of your team any FSG instructions on the slip of paper in the lobby?
Not in the lobby, not on the mezzanine floor. It was when we went up. We waited for a period of time to be committed, and the officers were doing quite a good job of stopping us, just because obviously everyone was keen to help out, but there obviously needed to be some sort of control of that. We waited there for a few moments. I couldn't tell you how long. The crew, the other pair from Shoreditch were behind us, and we were just talking about we had someone who hadn't done very long, so there was a lot of conversations about sort of stay calm and take it steady. I mean, this is big, but remember your training. So we waited there for a few moments, and then we were called up to the bridgehead, where a female watch manager. I think in my statement I've demoted her to crew manager, but she's actually a watch manager. And
she handed you an FSG slip of paper which read...
I can't remember whether it was her or the other officer that was there, which was a gentleman. I'm afraid we're from the east, so west. I didn't really know many people, so the faces and names are sort of lost on me.
Okay, and if I can stop you, the slip of paper in the statement you said it read flat 113, 14th floor.
That's
right?
Correct. It was on a little post-it note.
And were you given any further detail to assist completion of this FSG task?
Not that I recall, no.
So nothing like conditions on the stairwell, conditions in the particular flat?
We had crews coming out looking reasonably worse for wear, and some of them passed information to us regarding the conditions off the stairwell, on the stairwell, and most notably that there was no marked landing. The numbers were not marked on the landing, so the specific information that came from crews was to tell us to make sure we count the floors, because that was vitally important. But other than the information, no.
No. So no details of those who were in the flat, whether adults, men, women, children?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. Were you told that there'd been a previous evacuation where only some rescues had been made and others had been left in the building?
Answer no.
Were you aware from anyone from the Lambeth crew indicating to the bridgehead that they had discovered people had been left behind in flat 113?
That information wasn't given to me, no.
When you were at the bridgehead, were you aware of the content of any FSGs that related to flat 113?
Sorry, can you clarify?
Yes. When you were at the bridgehead,
Yep.
were you given the details of any other FSGs that related to flat 113?
No, I was just given the flat number and the floor to proceed to.
Now, in terms of your deployment to the 14th floor, the record indicates you went under air
Yep,
at
that's
0304. As you went up the tower, Mr. Lowe suggests that the stairwell was chaotic and cluttered with firefighting equipment. What was your recollection of the condition of the stairwells?
Yeah, I'd agree with Firefighter Lowe's account. I remember going onto the stairwell, reasonably clean out until possibly the 6th floor, maybe, almost definitely the 6th floor, because at that point I was counting quite attentively. There was lots of hose, a few lines of charged hose, but some empty hose that rolled up, and lots of crews coming down. I didn't count.
How difficult was it to make your way through the equipment on the stairwell and with people coming down?
It was impeding. It wasn't difficult to get over too much, but it was impeding, sort of slowing us down a little bit. And obviously, when crews were coming out with casualties, the cry casualty comes out, which you've heard before, and we crouch down and make sure that they go out. We took the inside path on the left-hand side. I did have a tick thermal image camera, and I found that was probably pointless until we got there, so because we just had a handrail to go up.
Now, it's right that you discovered a casualty round about the 10th floor.
I'd be quite confident because I was counting quite intently, yeah.
And was it a mother and daughter coming down?
Yes.
Yes. Is it possible that the first casualty was just the woman on her own? Just to give you some context for that, Mr. Lowe said John helped one person down and we then went back up again. Can you recall the sequence there?
It's possible they weren't together. Not sure. I assumed just from the vicinity between them that it was a mother and a daughter. Obviously, that's an assumption I made. I just remember there being a small person and a big person.
Okay. And you took them back down to the bridgehead, did you?
Terry assisted the older person, and what I assumed to be the daughter, I began to help down the stairs until they became, they started to become unconscious.
And you got them to the bridgehead?
Yes.
And
Sorry, no. We got them. As I proceeded down the stairs, the smoke levels had changed, and I began to sort of doubt whether I was at the 3rd floor. So I hurried my pace and came out on the mezzanine floor. That's where I handed the casualty to someone.
And did you debrief anyone at the mezzanine or at the bridgehead as to first of all, you've discovered casualties around about the 10th floor?
No, it was just a cry of casualty. Someone took that casualty from me, who obviously I trust to then care for that casualty. I went back, and Terry was, Firefighter Lowe was only just a few paces behind me, and he handed over his casualty. We briefly carried on with the task that we were given, that we were desperate to do.
Did you report back at that stage to the bridgehead that you hadn't yet completed the task to flat 113?
Answer no. We were. There was a lot of radio traffic, and I can't remember if Firefighter Lowe had BA comms, but I only had a handheld radio. There was a lot going on the radio, and I felt, I don't know if this is retrospective, but at the time it was just, let's just get back up there.
Okay. And did you say to anyone at the bridgehead that because you had brought down the 2 casualties, that it was imperative that further firefighters were deployed up to the 14th floor to assist you in rescuing people from flat 113?
No, at that point, because me and Firefighter Lowe had a very brief discussion when we discovered the casualties that we should get these people out first. We decided that once we'd got them out, we'd just go again, and we'd carry on with the initial task, which is what we did.
Okay. And did the conditions on the stairwell suggest to you, Mr. Lowe, that you needed further personnel to get to the 14th floor in order to rescue the occupants at flat 113?
No, I feel like we were capable. We had enough air to make it to complete our original task.
Even given the conditions you'd encountered on the stairwell, both in terms of physical obstruction, smoke, and people coming down?
I guess some of the decision making, I don't know whether it's subconscious or just experience, but I guess we thought that if we can't get someone from the 10th floor down, then we probably won't have a chance of getting someone from the 14th floor down. So we got the people from the 10th floor down first. Going up to the 14th floor, I assumed that that you wanted to complete the task in hand quite desperately, so get to the flat on the 14th floor and then consider the conditions.
Now, it's right, as you went back up the tower, you encountered a further casualty at about the 8th floor level, is that right?
Again, I believe it was 2 casualties, an older woman and a younger child, which again I assumed to be mother and daughter.
And Mr. Lowe helped the older woman and you threw the girl over your shoulder.
That's correct.
To bring her down. And you got back down to the bridgehead ahead of Mr. Lowe, is that right?
I believe, my recollection is at this point the bridgehead had been moved because of the changing conditions.
Where was it?
Yeah, so the bridgehead had been on one of the landings of the floor. As we came down, the first time the smoke was dropping floors. So then on the second way down, again, I'm not going to report to the bridgehead, I'm going to get the casualty out as quickly as possible. So I made my way down to the mezzanine floor, and I was made aware that the bridgehead had been moved because of these changing conditions. Because obviously the people on the bridgehead haven't got BA, so they need to be in safe air. So this information was relayed back to us. So I made my way to the mezzanine floor, down the glass stairwell where I was met by I don't know what to demote him either, group manager Colborne, who took the casualty off of me.
And who did you debrief as to where you'd found the 2 casualties?
Well, once again, it's once again, it's kind of firefighter sacrilege to leave your BA partner behind. But as we were on the stairwell and heading out, I was confident that I wouldn't lose Firefighter Lowe. So as I had the smaller casualty and could move quicker, I left him behind briefly. Once I'd handed the casualty over, obviously I now want to get back to firefighter low to make sure that him and the casualty are okay. So with this, I went back up the stairs and I was stopped by an officer, I believe it to be Group Manager Welch, I'm not sure, who informed me that I should be leaving, and I informed him that I should be going in, and I went back in, we got firefighter low, and we proceeded back down to where the bridgehead had moved, now on the ground floor in the atrium.
And did you debrief anyone at the bridgehead that you hadn't been able to complete the FFG?
Absolutely, it's the most important information we had. I can't remember who was at the bridgehead, but there was a few people. Obviously, it had moved at this point, or is in the process of moving, so it's quite chaotic, and they're taking a lot of information from one place. So I made sure that at least one or two people had been told that we didn't make our original task.
And by the time you'd got back to the bridgehead at that time, how much were you no longer under air? Can you remember?
In my statement, I've said that we were low on air. What I kind of meant was we were too low on air to complete the task on the 14th floor.
And that answers the question I was going to ask you next.
Fair enough, yeah. Preempting.
Could I ask you just two final topics? First of all, hoses. At page 9 of your witness statement, we don't need to go to it unless it would help you, you sorted out hose lines. And you
Not me personally, it was a team effort, yeah.
But you were part of a team that sorted out hose lines. Can you remember at what time you did this? Was that... it would be after...
So, as I say in my statement, after the BA where we went outside, helped out with some hose and some jets, and then were asked to go and retrieve some kit to go back into the building. I saw this as an opportunity to get back in the building and help out. So myself and firefighter Benatia went and got this kit, delivered it to the officers inside, and proceeded up where I found my crew from Whitechapel Fire Station and my own crew. And I'm not sure it's necessarily it was detailed to us, but it was very evident that there was only, to my recollection, 2 lines of hose in the entire building, and that firefighting was needed to carry out on the upper floors. So for a period of time we were shutting off water, extending lines. We brought a dividing breech up, which is a piece of equipment that can split one line into 2, and just made sure that it went as high as possible.
So to what extent were these various hose lines, to what extent were they obstructing the stairwell?
Just as normal as hose lines would obstruct the stairwell. There was a lot of uncharged rolled up hose.
Were any charged?
There was, I believe there was 2 charged, one from the bridgehead floor, and then one must have been from the floor of the 4th floor maybe of the fire, and that was taken up the building. We extended both of these up to possibly the 13th floor.
Okay. And were hoses still being used to fight fires at this stage whilst you were tidying up?
I don't know, I'm afraid is the answer to that.
One final question in respect of lobby doors. Is it fair to say that when they were closed, the lobby doors prevented the spread of smoke into the stairwell?
When we were extending the hose, we weren't under air, so it's outside of our policy. If it's an irrespirable atmosphere or a chance of an irrespirable atmosphere, we should wear BA. Me and the other crews that were with me were quite aware that this task, along with the task of search and rescue on the other floors, it would have been too much to have BA. So we took it upon ourselves to do this without BA sets on. The conditions were changeable, so when we had crews come up, the stairwell would be clear to a point, and then we'd have crews come up and make entry off of the stairwell onto the floors. Every time they'd done that, it filled the stairwell up with smoke completely. To the point where we would push BA crews into the door and ask them to shut the door behind them and let it clear. But there was a few times.
And when the doors were closed, were they effective?
When the doors were closed, they were effective. I sat without BA on for periods of time, and the doors were radiating heat, but were keeping the smoke back.
So those are all the questions I have. Rather than asking you to rise, given the time, I shall give a quick scan of the hearing room, and I don't see any bids. And so in those circumstances, given the time,
yes.
Final call, there are no further points to be made. So in those
No,
circumstances...
no one is standing up, gesticulating or saying anything, so I think it's probably safe to infer that they don't have any other questions to suggest.
I think so. And so that just leaves it for me to thank you, Mr. Wharnsby, for coming to give evidence today. It's been very helpful.
Yes, well, likewise, Mr. Wharnsby, I'd like to thank you very much for coming along. It's very valuable evidence, and we're very grateful to you. Thank you.
So that concludes today's business.
Yes.
We have further evidence on Monday.
Yes.
I have no application to make, whether on my own behalf or on behalf of Mr. Millett, and I would invite you to start at 10 o'clock.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. You've done well to get through such a long list of witnesses in the day. We'll break there and resume at 10 o'clock on Monday then, please. Thank you very much.